Today, I'll be doing a Jupyter demo for you all. The way I have it set up here is that I have two tabs. One is the teacher view, one is the student view. We have created a course called Vocarium Jupyter Elite, and in this particular case, I'm showing you the teacher view. You can create a new assignment under the Edit Assignment tab. Here, we'll create a new assignment called Jupyter Assignment. Save and continue. In Vocarium, an assignment is a collection of what we call parts. Let's create a part and we'll call it P1. The name isn't important if you only have one part. Down here, we have Jupyter Notebook and Jupyter Elite, so we'll go ahead and click Jupyter Elite. We'll save the part before we publish. Jupyter Notebook is just our classic UI versus Jupyter Elite is our relatively new lab. You can use either one. We'll go back to make sure that we check published grades and save the setting. Let's go back to the student view. If you refresh the page, you should be able to see the Jupyter assignment here. Let's open the My Work. If you are integrating Vocarium via LTI, you won't see that previous page. It'll just take you directly here. This is a fully managed Jupyter notebook that a learner can use. As you can see here, there's a whole bunch of kernels installed like C, Java, Julia, Python, and R. But we'll go ahead and open Python 3.7. We can type something random here just to show you that it's working and you can run it. This is the basic Jupyter notebook you're giving to your learners. But oftentimes what you'd want to do is grade them and give the learner a starting point so that they don't have to start from scratch. Let's go ahead and create another assignment. We'll call this Jupyter Starter Code. We'll hit save and continue. We'll also have to create another part. We'll call this part 1 again and switch the lab type to Jupyter Elite. Let's go to the Vocarium grading section and we'll also create a rubric. We can grade a score out of 10. Let's save the part. I'm just going to quickly go back to make sure that published grades are checked. Got to save that setting before going back to our part 1. There are other sections here like lab resources. If needed, you can use this section to deliver resources like a database or Cloud Labs or Spark Cluster for your learners. Under Lab Interface, there are panels where you can control the view. This is just saying that there's a console shown to the learner, which is a default view, and you can have a reset in an assignment. I'll actually go ahead and add File Browser here and save the part. The submission section is where you can change the due date, implement late or early submissions. Number of submissions is an important feature because you can control the number of times the learner can submit. This feature becomes especially important when we talk about autograding. Show solution is a feature where you can control when to release the solution to the learner, whether it's after how many times they've attempted submissions or after a due date. For grading, there are some options here related to autograding. You can have a late penalty and generate scripts, though this option is a bit advanced. We'll run a script when the learner comes in so that you can generate a unique solution for every learner. This feature could be used for something like an exam. Multiple versions aren't used that often, but you can set a version number for an assignment and the learner can only start an assignment if they have finished everything up to that version. We can go ahead and publish this now. After it's published, it will be available for the student. Let's say you want to provide a starter code. This is a file system where you can deliver starter code or data. In this particular case, I want to provide a starting notebook for the learner. We'll upload this notebook in the starter code directory. After the upload is successful, we can update it after. Update is just our version of deploy. We'll go back to the student view, and the Jupyter starter code will be visible now. It should be populated with a notebook there. On this Manage application, we maintain all these packages, so there are hundreds of packages that we constantly update so you don't have to worry about it. You can update it yourself, but it's much easier if we update it for you. We have a process which guarantees a turnaround within 48 hours. Now you see it has a couple of simple plots, but the important thing to note here is that they are using NumPy matplotlib. Let's go ahead and make some trivial changes, like changing the grid from aqua to red, and run it again. It'll take some time when you do it for the first time, but now you see that the lines has changed to red. We can now submit the assignment as a learner. Now let's go back to the teacher view. On the dashboard, you can see all the submissions made by this learner. Let's view the assignment. Now this is called the grading view. This is a running Jupyter notebook, but it's running on the student's submission. There are a couple of ways to grade this. It could have multiple rubrics, but in this case, there's only one, so I can give them a score here, and I can also add a comment. I'm going to write, "Good job changing the color." Now make sure to save the grade or it won't go through. Now let's switch back to the learner view so we could see what they see. We'll refresh the page and you can see that the score is 4 out of 10. If you click into the assignment, you should see the code comment right there. If you noticed on the left, there's a section called Submissions. We actually implemented this over the last year, and the learner can actually view all their past submissions here. It takes a few seconds because it's converting the notebook to HTML. If you hit Grades, the student will be able to see their overall score, and they'll be able to see the code comment here. Now let's switch back to the teacher view so that we could create another assignment. And this time we'll add autograding to it. This assignment will be called Jupyter Autograde, and we'll have to create a new part for it. We'll name the part P1 and change the lab type to Jupyter Elite. And we'll have to save the part before we configure Workspace, which is where you prepare the notebooks. This time in the work area, I will upload a new notebook called Factorial, which I've prepared, which can be auto-graded. After the notebook is uploaded successfully, you can then launch the Jupyter server. Once again, this is the teacher area or author area. This is the notebook I uploaded, and if you see here, there are some tags on the cell called Read Only, Solutions, or Auto Grading Tests. Essentially, the tags mean that these are NB grader tags, if you're familiar with it. Read Only means whether the learner can change this cell or not. Solution is where they're supposed to edit. For example, it says, "Do not change this cell," so I can change the option to Read Only. Then there are some markdown cells where you can give instructions. Look at here where it says Begin Solution Template and End Solution. Teachers can provide a notebook where it can check the answers. This particular cell is important because it's marked as an autograder test, and what it means is when it does autograding, it'll execute this block and check if any of the assertions trigger. In this case, the assertion is factorial 3 answer equals 6. If this assertion triggers, then the user will get a 0 on this rubric test 1. Otherwise, they'll get 1 point here. This is the message you can deliver if the assertion triggers, but if it doesn't, it'll show this print message. The begin hidden tests and end hidden tests just means that you don't want the students to be able to see this test. So when the notebook is presented, it'll actually keep this part hidden. So let's try running, and there will be an error here. It is expecting this package to be here in this path, but it's saying that it's not found. We'll have to go back to the public directory. This is where you can deliver read-only content to your learners. For example, this is where you can deliver datasets. Now there is a subtle difference between the public and public data section, and the public data section just means that you can only have one main copy. Now the difference between the ASN lib versus lib is in ASN lib, the directory is created specifically for this problem. If you want to deliver some resources which are common to a lot of problems in this course, then you can just add it once in this lib directory, and it'll become visible in all of the problems. Now we can go ahead and upload this zip file here. The system will automatically unzip it. Once it has uploaded successfully, we can go ahead and relaunch the server. Now we can try running it again, and there should be no errors this time. Yep, no errors. We can now release the notebook. This essentially just deploys the extracted notebook in the starter code directory, which I've showed earlier on. There are several options here. If you have more than one notebook, it'll ask you here which one you want to release from your work area. Whether you want to extract rubric items from the notebook or not, in this case we'll keep it checked. Delete unused grading items is here because let's say you make a mistake in the name. Do you want to delete the previous one, or in Vocarium's case, you can mix and match rubrics so that you can have a few auto-graded rubrics and few peer reviews. And in that case, you don't want to delete unused grading items. Unused just means it wasn't used in this notebook. Create resource link in starter code. This is a very specific option because if you have some image assets in your notebook that you want to display, because of notebooks, you can't have a /resource, so that it creates a link so that you say, my image asset is in resource/asnlib/public. This is whether you want to generate a grading script or not. and this is whether you want to show traceback for errors. We'll actually turn this off because if you show the traceback, then it gives away what the test is. This is just to enable auto-grading. And now we can release the notebook. And once there are no errors, you can hit update, which will deploy the notebook. We won't go through these options up here, but generate quiz is used if you have multiple choice quiz. You can actually post-process a markdown file. Build image if you're bringing your own container image, for example, and merge content is used if you have multiple problems that you want to combine into one. These are just some of our other complex options. If you have any questions about them, you can go ahead and reach out to us. Now we can publish this assignment. After it's done, we can go back to the learner view and refresh the page, and you should be able to see the Jupyter AutoGrade assignment show up. Now let's open the notebook. The notebook that is being presented to the learners shouldn't have the autograder block. It is now removed here. We can solve the first problem now. We'll put the answer 6 and we can submit the assignment. What this is doing now is sending the learner's notebook to our grading servers. These are auto-scale bank of servers, and we can actually scale some really large number of jobs, and these jobs can take a few hours. So this is a pretty robust bank system for scheduling and auto-grading. We got full points for that question because we answered it correctly. Now we can answer the second question. We will just paste the answer I got from the teacher's guide and submit again. First we'll run it and then submit it. So we got full marks for that question also. Hopefully this gives you an idea of how auto-grading works. There is one last feature I wanted to cover. Let's say you want to deliver instructions. You'd be able to add any markdown to the docs directory. For Jupyter, typically you'll include the instructions in the notebook itself, but there are other kinds of lab where you want to deliver the instructions to the learner. I have a markdown file here which I'll upload, and after it's uploaded successfully, we'll have to update it. We can reload to the student view after it's done. On the right here is where the instructions will be delivered. This doesn't have to be a Jupyter lab, but it can be any other lab. You can also have your multiple choice go here too. This concludes our Jupyter Elite demo. Hopefully this gives you a better idea of how to navigate our labs. If you have any additional questions, please send an email to support@vocarium.com.